Welcome to Vitality Made Simple, the podcast that empowers you to feel younger, look younger, and to more fully enjoy the many relationships in your life. It's all about relationships. I'm your host, Dr. Debbie Osment, and I sincerely thank you for joining me. Now, vitality is physical and intellectual vigor. It is zest for life. So in today's podcast, I'm going to tell you about a blood test that can give you excellent information about your health and that will propel you to more proactive strategies. You know, the normal medical model currently is very reactive. In other words, we wait for a problem and then we go to the doctor, get some diagnosis, and feel panicked, to treat the problem. But remember, our bodies are designed to heal. And when we're panicked, when we're stressed, and we have some bad news, big bad news or little bad news, we often have few options. Now that may be the normal way that things go, but here at Vitality Made Simple, we're going to resist normal. Normal is simply defined as the usual and the regular pattern. And it's what's typical or familiar in a society or in the world at that time. Well, normal's not good. Think about what normal in our world is. It's dehydrated, irritated, constipated, frustrated, overscheduled, overstimulated, undernourished, underrested, inflamed, and totally stressed out. Too often normal is waiting to get sick and then treating the symptoms. Now, you don't have to be from Oklahoma to know that you really don't want this kind of normal. So I want to help you rethink the failing medical model. It's very much a model of hopelessness. So today I'm going to unravel a blood test called C-reactive protein. Now, C-reactive protein is also known as CRP. You might see it as HSCRP, which stands for high sensitivity C-reactive protein, but it's a blood marker of inflammation. Now, it's a very non-specific marker of inflammation. There's a substance that the liver makes, a protein that is manufactured in response to inflammation somewhere in the body. Now, I want to talk about this blood marker within the framework of the Nicodemus House framework. About 15 years ago, I was on a medical mission trip, and I learned so much there in the Andes Mountains. We were in Ecuador, but I learned, about the people, and they just have such great ways of doing things. We visited a home for boys called the Nicodemus House. Now, it was just the greatest place. There were all these young boys, and they were being educated, they were being taught to run a business, and they were being taught about the Bible. So they would, in fact, one of their businesses was that they would make fresh bread every day and sell it. So each night they would have a Bible study and they would look at a specific passage of scripture, and they had a very useful framework for this. They would say, what does it say? What does it mean? And how does it apply to my life? So I think that really fits when it comes to vitality, because you can know a lot, but if you don't really know what it means and how it impacts your specific situation, it's really information that doesn't help you. So, vitality requires discernment. So I think this Nicodemus framework will help all of us with that. Because once you have your mindset and you know how it impacts how you feel, how you look, the energy that you have for relationships, then making the changes is easy. It's not a chore when you know why. But as we get older, we want to get older. We just don't want to feel old. And I'm seeing in my clinical practice too many young people that are feeling older biologically than they are chronologically. In other words, they might be having a birthday of age 35, but they feel older than me, and I'm 64. So it comes down to inflammation, which can be often called inflammaging. Inflammaging is that chronic inflammation that accelerates aging. So this is knowledge, this is power that can really help you increase your vitality span. So first of all, what is C-reactive protein? As I said, it's often called CRP or high sensitivity CRP, HSCRP, which is actually the blood test that I recommend. But it's very nonspecific. It's a very nonspecific marker of inflammation. It's a substance, a protein made by the liver in response to inflammation somewhere in the body. Now, high CRP levels can indicate that there's inflammation. It could be in the heart, it could be in the gut, it could be, and I say the gut including the mouth. It can be from lots of different reasons, and it can signal a myriad of different problems. Originally, it was all about heart attack and stroke, and it's very predictive for heart attack and stroke. So, a wide variety of conditions can cause an elevated CRP. It could be a splinter in your big toe, or it could be cancer. It could be a tooth that is infected, or it can be serious heart disease, and you could be primed to have a full-blown stroke. Now, this test shows you the level of inflammation, but it doesn't tell you where it's coming from. But so I think it's a great test to have done when you have your annual blood test done. Just ask your physician to check your high sensitivity C-reactive protein. It's also used to monitor therapy. So say if you had a problem and your C-reactive protein was high, then you might get it retested to see if it's going down or going up. It's very, very non-specific. That's the key. All kinds of inflammatory problems can cause it to be elevated. So why does C-reactive protein matter? In other words, what does it mean? Now, chronic inflammation is the common denominator in all the diseases and all the disorders that you do not want, all those things that will zap your vitality. Chronic inflammation, as I said, makes you feel older faster, and it makes you very vulnerable to disease. That's why it's such a good early marker. So when you find out that it's elevated, you get to uncover all those hidden culprits. So, but if you're already suffering, say, from type 2 diabetes, then you can improve your outcome by decreasing any chronic inflammation anywhere in your body. Now, in general, high sensitivity CRP is associated with the progression of atherosclerosis, that's hardening of the arteries, as well as an increased heart attack and stroke incidence. But in my clinical practice, I see it elevated in all kinds of problems. I see it elevated in type 2 diabetes, in cancer, in autoimmunity, in rheumatoid arthritis, even in some pregnancy loss. I see that chronic inflammation is at the root. And of course, all of those diseases have a lot of root cause, such as low vitamin D or obesity or smoking or physical inactivity, too much setting, a new epidemic, or a diet high in sugar or processed foods, runaway stress, poor sleep, toxins. Lots of things can cause this chronic inflammation. And then we always want to sleuth out that root cause. It's just an early indicator of a problem on the horizon potentially, and it gives you the opportunity to make a mid-course correction and possibly avoid, a much bigger problem. I always say you don't know the snake that doesn't bite you. You want to avoid getting bitten. But I also want to emphasize that all inflammation is not bad. Our bodies are designed with the inflammatory response to protect us. Inflammation is very much like your high school boyfriend or girlfriend. Too much of a good thing is not a good thing. We can compare inflammation to a campfire or a wildfire. Those are the exact same chemical reactions. One is contained, one has a purpose. You sit around the campfire, you sing songs, tell jokes, cook food, and have excellent relationship around a campfire. It has a purpose, and it's very healing. That is how acute inflammation works. Acute inflammation comes into that toe that has a splinter, and it heals it. It also does a little bit of damage. You're going to see a scar potentially, but it does something good. Very different than a wildfire. And I want to compare chronic inflammation, these underlying chronic inflammatory problems, to a wildfire. You know, with a wildfire, you might think it's out and it's not out, and it's jumping and skipping to different places. You don't know where it started necessarily, and it does a lot of damage in its wake. So we don't want to suppress all inflammation, because that acute inflammation is healing. And so that's why it's so important to find root cause. So what is it? What does it mean? But how can it impact your life? What can you do about it? I hope this podcast inspires you to ask for that test and to not settle for a normal reading of C-reactive protein. A normal reading is 3 or below. You're gonna get a test and it's like, oh, it's going to say you're fine if it's, say, 2.9. But you really want it to be optimal, and that is below 1 milligram per liter. You want to always look at that, because in between that 1 and 3, there might be something that you need to address. In my own life, I had that diagnosis of chronic lymphocytic leukemia, and my C-reactive protein was about 2. Well, I knew that's not what I wanted, but I didn't know what it was. But now I'm attacking it full boat. And you can do this too. When you start doing things to decrease chronic inflammation, you're going to help your whole body. So, often you're going to see that only related to heart attack and stroke. But before considering that this substance is coming from your arteries, you might want to consider other inflammatory conditions that could be raising this protein. Because so often, your arteries are sort of downstream. I mean, things that are happening other places are causing your arteries to be inflamed. So there's lots of things that can trigger the release of this protein from your liver. Any kind of infection, trauma to your body, cancer raises it, gum disease raises it, gut problems. Think about constipation or diarrhea. You don't want to be normal in that way. Too many people are constipated. All of those, microbial problems can increase the release of C-reactive protein. Now when you think about your gut, I love to talk about the gut on Vitality Made Simple, because it has, so much influence over your relationships. I mean, if you're running to the bathroom all the time, you don't feel good. In your gut, that's where lots of vitamins are produced. That impacts your sleep. It impacts your anxiety. If you're constipated, you're not going to be the best for your relationships. We have to look at everything, stem to stern. And that's why early gum disease is so important, because it really affects the gut. People often forget that sleep disturbances can raise inflammatory levels. Sleep deprivation, really causes inflammation. Vitamin D deficiency is a big one. And then hot off the press, I just read a research article the other day that too much sitting also raises C-reactive protein. So you want to get moving. Just as a quick reminder, you want to get about 30 minutes of exercise a day. And of course, I have to talk about fiber on Vitality Made Simple. You want to eat real food fiber. You want to eat brightly colored fruits and vegetables. You also want to include quality meats in your diet. Here she goes again talking about, fiber and real food. But it makes sense. You don't have to have a study to know this. And there are tons of studies, though, that do confirm it. You can find a fiber sheet on drdebbieosment.com, a free fiber sheet that will help you get started and just monitor how much fiber you're eating. You'll be amazed at how much better you feel. And it will decrease your chronic inflammation in your body. It will decrease your C-reactive protein. And I guarantee that your relationships will be impacted. When you don't feel your best, you don't, feel like being a good friend, a good, spouse, a good, son or daughter. So I pray that this information has given you information that will guide you as you grow in your health autonomy. You're the boss of you, and you have to live with the choices that you make. They greatly impact your relationships. These bodies are not going to last forever, but they are our relationship vehicles. So in closing, I want to tell you a true life clinical story about C-reactive protein related to a patient of mine. A physician, an MD, sent a patient who had who was very worried. They were worried this patient had cancer because her C-reactive protein was 18.1, and they had done testing, couldn't find it. The patient was referred to me, and all she needed was a really good teeth cleaning. She needed a deep cleaning, but she had early gum disease. And so then she got retested. We did not use antibiotics. I used, did my deep cleaning with the laser. And then she got retested 3 months later. And her C-reactive protein had dropped from 18.1 to 2.9. Just with something simple. So I hope this inspires you, because it's so tempting, to reach for a pill without finding root cause. When you think about a pill, it might be a pharmaceutical. It might be something over the counter to reduce inflammation, like a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory, or it might even be a supplement like fish oil or like curcumin. Those are all fine when used correctly, but we don't want to just squelch the inflammation. We want to find the cause. You don't want to start with the pill. That's not the place to start. We're designed to live and heal. We're designed to live in relationship with God and with people, and our bodies are the vehicle. So a C-reactive protein is like a check engine light for your vehicle. And I hope this helps you. I hope this helps you have a long and vibrant vitality span, because being healthy, feeling great does not need to be confusing, expensive, or no fun. There's so much you can do for yourself. So thanks for joining me for episode 95. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for sharing. I'm just a social media introvert, and it's because you're sharing, and I really appreciate it. Please keep doing it. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe, because together we're going to live younger, we're going to live longer, and we're just going to have more fun. I want to tell you we're now in 81 countries and 1,471 cities, and that's because of you. Blessings until next time.